everyone. Welcome to Hospitality Today Live. I'm Deborah Gardner, your host again. Here we are for the full year and into another one. And we are just so happy that you are here with us because we have another great episode for you here today. And I am so excited to introduce to you Dex Callner, who is actually at the UK. He's a couple hours ahead of us, but he is located in the United Kingdom area. We're going to talk to him a little bit more about what he has been going through, especially during these difficult times, what's going on in clear across the other side of the world, and also his coalition, which is the Experiential Marketing Measurement Coalition. And also we're going to talk about Smyle. So what is all of this about? Well, we're going to discuss how the event meeting professionals measure all their reports and how does that impact what they do, especially when they have to report to the stakeholders and owners. That is very, very important. But also, what is the importance behind it? How can people get involved? Are there grants available? And what are the challenging things that everybody's going through, but yet the Experiential Marketing Measurement Coalition actually wants to share what they do that helps each and every one of our viewers here today. So this is a do not miss episode. You will not want to go very far, and we'll be right back because this is Hospitality Today Live. For teams, pickles.com. Hi, Dex. Thank you so much for being with us from clear across the world.
Hi. I'm an American living in England.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have been in the industry for what, like 2 decades now, and yet you have found a niche in the entire hospitality meetings and events world that really is exclusive and so important, and that's why we're so happy to have here today. And I know we've got a lot to talk about, but of course we want to know about Dex.
What can I tell you? I've been in the industry for 21 years, which is a long time. I started in the United States in California at an agency called Carabiner that was later bought by Jack Morton Worldwide. And I started my career as a digital media producer. This was in 1999, and everyone was still trying to figure out what that meant to be digital media.
Right.
And but then I realized, because I was at an event agency, that I had to learn events. And so I became more of an event strategist over time. However, that digital experience carries through to today for obvious reasons. I still do a lot of work in digital. And I also, as you've mentioned, got really passionate about measurement. And so that is one of my passion points and one of the niche areas that I'm interested in for sure. It's not the only thing. I'm the strategy director at Smyle, which is an agency in the UK that does work globally, including with a number of really big US-based clients. But I'm always going on, there's my Englishism, I'm always yammering about measurement to everyone who will listen. And of course, as you mentioned, I'm the chairman of the Experiential Marketing Measurement Coalition, which is really focused on measurement and is not just about what I do, but the whole industry, which we'll get into.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, we're going to have to break this down because as important as this is to our industry, a lot of people don't understand it. They don't understand the importance behind it. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand how to report it to their stakeholders or to the boss or the investor. They don't understand I can't express it more on how important it is for them to dissect this in order to explain the value of what they do. Can you help us with this, along with the history of all this?
I hope so. That is the challenge. And
Yes,
I
it is.
recall, by the way, at Jack Morton, we tried to solve it, at least when I was there. And I know they've come a long way since I left the company. But it has been the challenge since I started in this business. And I remember clients who were hosting events and conferences and those sorts of things and said that their primary measure was whether or not their executive had a good time and was happy. And I just thought that doesn't sound quite right. And I actually remember one instance, by the way, where a new chief financial officer came into that company and canceled the event. He said, "I don't see the value. You have no evidence to support the value," and just canceled it. And so from a category standpoint, as anyone who's in this industry should understand, is that events are expensive. And if we can't justify why that investment is worthwhile, then they are quite likely to be cut. And we don't want them to be cut because innately we believe in them. However, I think we realize that we need the data to reflect what the effectiveness is. And it has been a real challenge on a number of levels. Number one is most of us are not data analysts or data scientists. And I think when I consider measurement and the coalition that I'm part of, it is about making it digestible and simple enough for an event person who's not a data analyst to understand and be able to communicate. The second thing is, I think we have typically understood elements of a hospitality event where the things that matter are, how was the food, and did I get a chance to talk to someone, and was the transportation effective, and online it's sort of like, did the technology work or did the app work? And all that stuff is obviously critical, because if those foundational elements don't work, it kind of sullies the rest of the experience. However, that's not the stuff that the chief financial officer or the head of marketing or the CEO of the company care about. What they care about are business goals. And so it's critical that we align our measurement to what's important to the people who hold the purse strings, because they're the ones who will say, like, I'm cutting this thing. I'm going to spend all my money on digital advertising because it's super cheap and I get tons of reach. So we are competing essentially budgetarily with all of these other channels that tend to be less expensive, at least on a per touch basis. So when you think about aligning to business goals, you have to ask yourself, what do my executives care about? Typically, they care about, are we driving sales behaviors? So whether it's a customer, a prospect, I'll come back to internal and employees in a second, but they care about, are we driving behaviors that measurably will impact our revenue? And the tricky thing about this is there's a phrase that I try not to use in measurement when I talk about it, and that phrase is ROI. The reason is because we know with events that we have a time dimension in which we're doing the activity. And that within that time dimension, we can move people forward. However, we're not necessarily selling products or services on site. Occasionally we are, but usually not. And even if we are, we may be impacting long-term purchase behavior. And to correlate something that happens 6 months or a year later to an event is dishonest. Therefore, saying what is your return on investment, meaning financial return, how much did we sell versus what did we invest, is not an honest assessment of events. What we can evaluate is, are we changing people's likelihood to purchase? And so when I talk to clients about a customer event or a prospect event, one of my core measures is, are we affecting that anticipated behavior? Because that's an honest measurement of what happened from a revenue standpoint. It doesn't say we're going to track it all the way through, because we know after the event, there's a million other things that can happen that will impact the purchase. But what we can control and what we measure is how people feel about their likelihood to buy afterwards. That's for a customer audience. I also think the CEOs and CMOs care about the brand, and understanding what it is about the brand that is critical for us to drive a perception around will lead to business value. And you may be familiar with things like Net Promoter Score or brand attribution or brand attributes. And so I'm working with a client now right now, for example, where we're asking a question around, as a result of this event, I trust this brand. So that's one example of an attribute, trust, that we may want to get across within an experience. And the question is, did we actually move the needle on trust? By the way, one of the things I like to do is ask the question before the event and ask the same question after the event, because there I can show directly that the experience of the event impacted this person's perception of the brand. And we know, lots of research tells us that if you create strength in the brand, it will deliver business value. And so again, it's not a hard quantitative metric like financial results, but it is a contributor to business value. And I think anybody who says it isn't hasn't looked at the research. There's loads of studies about it. That's number two. Number three is, are we delivering value to the people we're impacting? Now, again, that isn't a direct correlation to revenue, but what we've seen in studies is that when you deliver value to someone, they're more likely to buy. They're more likely to continue doing business with you. You can expand and enhance the relationship you have with them. So one of the core questions that the EMMC, the Experiential Marketing Measurement Coalition, has come up with around this is, was this experience a good use of my time? Rate the level of agreement. This was a good use of my time. And I think, to me, not wasting someone's time and making them feel like they got something out of it, that's the perfect question for it. And so we want to understand, did people get value out of it? And the way we do it is asking them, was it a good use of their time? So those are generally external things. I'll just touch on quickly for people that work on internal events and activations. Is it isn't quite the same because it's not correlated to sales behavior. However, what I try to do with companies who are doing employee experiences is understand, what are the desired behaviors and are we moving the needle on those behaviors? Like, we can define, we want people to do X or Y as a result of the experience, and we can understand, do they anticipate, do they expect to do those things that we want them to do? We can ask them questions about the brand. Do they feel strength in the brand that they work for? We can ask them, how likely are you to recommend this company as a place to work? We can ask them, was this a good use of your time? All of that same structure works for an internal event. The business value is evaluated differently because maybe you're looking to retain good talent, or you're trying to change a certain behavior or educate people. All that stuff applies. But you have to think, I guess, depending on who your audience is, how to structure your metric methodology in order to get the best data out of it. And then I'll just finally conclude on this section of my speech that reporting is also an art form a little bit. You have to remember that, similar to those of us in events and hospitality who are not data scientists, is that the people we're reporting to are also not data scientists. They need digestible reporting that reflects on the simple takeaways. And so what actually happened and how did we evaluate it? Simple takeaways expressed hopefully through easy to digest charts and graphs and very short kind of summary text. And then the last thing on this that I always try to do is, I trust the data. However, I contextualize it using my knowledge of the event and my understanding of the business. Because I think as event marketing professionals, we bring knowledge that we use to analyze the data. So when I do reporting for clients, yes, I report on, here's what the data says exactly. However, I also put in my thoughts about what the data says. Maybe I'm saying, we think this happened because of this, or as a result of this finding, we should do this differently next time around. Or even more, the best practice is this, and we did this. And so you can kind of compare your own experience with the results that you're seeing. So that's essentially the framework that I use and recommend to others when it comes to evaluating the actual performance of an event or activation.
Wow. I guess after hearing what you just said in a nutshell, because I know that was the condensed version, I feel like clueless. I mean, I think our entire industry has that feeling as well. I mean, I don't know if it was you or my show manager just private text me. I even said experimental instead of experiential. So there is a difference.
Yeah. We're not doing experimental marketing. I mean,
Yeah.
we're experimenting, but it is all about experience.
But that's how clueless I believe, and I know I'm speaking for the industry. We're clueless, absolutely clueless when it comes to measurement and reporting. But yet you just simplified how it can actually be something not like a big monster, like I think a lot of people look at it as. I think it could be very well managed by just what you just shared with those three areas were incredible golden nuggets. I mean, that just makes a lot of sense. And I know the CEOs, CFOs, CMOs would appreciate this type of process put into place. And like you said, it's just a matter of providing simple takeaways and a simplified reporting process instead of making it seem so over.
I lost her.
Like yourself do it makes a lot of sense. That would take, that's one less hat that they have to wear. And I would imagine your clients are just so grateful for you to bring this type of information to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like you and I, our clients who have been in this industry for a while, first of all, they're being asked really hard questions.
Yeah.
They're being asked to demonstrate why we should continue spending money. And they don't have the answer at hand.
No.
And I think we have to help them. We have to, as an industry, get better at having those answers so that we can defend our programs. Because we, as I said a minute ago, event people love events and they believe in it. And we see the audience's faces. We know the impact that we're having.
Right.
But without the data, it's really difficult to convince someone who doesn't believe that or doesn't see it in the same way we do. And that's why it's incumbent on us to, I guess, get more sophisticated and think about business impact so that we can defend our budgets. And
I think that this is a no-brainer for right now because prices are going up. Especially with event planners are doing virtual, the whole hybrid thing. I believe that the production teams are going to be workaholics at this point more than ever before, and the event professionals are going to have to pay for it. So now, for all those meeting and event professionals that are viewing this right now, you need to get on board with it. If it's not contacting Dex about this, but you got to really put in the time to do this, because not only for the reputation of the company or organization, but your reputation matters too. So what better way than to provide your own experience and your own, build your resume in this industry is when you know how to measure things like this. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the table, because this is a no-brainer. It has to happen to help with the budget side of things. And we always hear it. We have no budget. We have no budget. Well, I'll wonder why. Hello.
Right.
This is why.
Yeah.
You gotta prove it. You have
to prove it.
We do. We actually have a question for you from a fan, an HTL fan out there from Visibly Media. What is the one golden nugget that the hospitality industry needs to do to get more involved with measuring, for example, for what you are doing, like we were just mentioning, what can they do?
Of course, that's the best question ever, because it totally sets me up for kind of promoting the Emmc.
Awesome.
So essentially, Let me just tell you a little bit of history. So the Experiential Marketing Measurement Coalition, or EMMC, and if you want to learn more, our website is eventmeasurement.org. It is a not-for-profit. It started in the United States. I founded it. I was at GES at the time, and they came along this journey, and I think something like 35 other companies, and that's 2 members each, so about 65 people are currently involved in the EMMC, including mostly, if I'm honest, US-based companies, because that's where I started it and that's where I came from. Now that I'm in the UK, we're getting people involved here. But essentially, it was people who, like me and you, felt that measurement was critical. However, there was a lack of knowledge, a lack of consistency, which is critical, and I'll come back to that, and in our industry, and a lack of general sort of understanding of best tools and practices. And so the underlying mission of the EMMC is to promote more and better measurement in our industry. More means we think people should be measuring just about anything that they're doing in our space, and better means they should be doing it in a way that does align to the business priorities of either their internal stakeholders or their clients if they're an agency. And so what we have done thus far is we spent the first 2 years kind of like getting our act together. We're all volunteers. We got not-for-profit status. No one's making any money, but we're putting in our time because we're passionate about this element. And there are members of the coalition who come in without knowledge of measurement. They just understand its importance. And in a way, they're using the time in the group to absorb, to learn. And that's wonderful, and there's no issue with that. There are others who have been doing this for decades, who bring expertise, and those folks are contributing actively to some of our initiatives. The initiatives are, number one, to promote as an advocacy group, thought leadership, best practices. We're just starting this journey of starting to publish content about measurement. Doing talks like this, for example, sort of promoting our point of view and what we think the adoption should be, and inviting people, as we are now, to join us in this journey. So all we have right now is a website and a LinkedIn profile. You can find us on LinkedIn as well. And I would encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn, because we will be using that as one of the primary vehicles to promote, like, here are some things that you should be thinking about, and some survey questions and some metrics to identify. And so we have a whole range of content that's coming. So we're just at the beginning stages of that now. Another one of our initiatives is to develop consistent metrics and benchmarks. So what do we mean by that? We're developing a set of core survey questions that we want to ask others to ask in everything that they're doing. And what we're going to do with that is, with the members of the coalition, is we're going to anonymize the data. So we're not connecting it to any people or any particular event, but we're going to anonymize the data and establish global event benchmarks. Why is that important? The way I think of it is, I have 2 daughters, and if my daughters come home from school and they both got a B on a test, I think that's good, but I don't know. If everyone else in the class got an A, it's not that good. If everyone else in the class got a C, it's good. And so the benchmark is that comparative data point that says, here's how you're doing versus everyone else. And I will say, it's funny because you mentioned virtual events and digital experiences. I personally think that's here to stay. It's not going away. And over the last 18 months, there's so much data flying around with virtual events that one of the challenges has been, how do you navigate that data landscape and identify what are the metrics that really matter? And I think that's part of this sort of consistent core foundational metrics and survey questions, are that they work for virtual, they work for physical. But the other thing is that it created a moment in time where anyone who's been working in virtual events, if you didn't have to deal with data in physical events, you're dealing with it now. And so we're helping to hopefully simplify that, just as we are with physical events, so that we can all become better marketers and understand which data is important and what we can kind of say is extraneous and not that critical. So that second initiative is, as I've said, to establish global benchmarks. And then all of us in the industry can say, well, how's my exhibit doing versus other exhibits? Or how is my conference doing versus other conferences? Or how's my hospitality event doing versus others? That is one of the goals and the initiatives of the Emmc. We're a ways away from getting there, but we are dedicated to that goal. The third initiative, and I think that's the main last one, is a process by which people who are doing measurement can get a certification of sorts. And so we're working with a university who's going to review how people in the coalition are doing measurement, meaning how are you doing surveys? What's your data look like? Are you doing it the right way? Are you following best practice? And if they are, they get a stamp of approval. You're approved measurement provider. And if they're not, they can learn from that process about how they can improve what their practices are, so that it can be a kind of a learning experience for them, so that next time they try to get certified, they follow best practice. And so this goes into what I said before around not just doing more measurement, but better measurement. So establishing, here are the best practices, putting thought leadership out there, and allowing for the certification model so that we can say, are we doing the best kind of possible practices when it comes to measurement?
Well, I think that is very smart, especially the certification, because certifications mean a lot in our industry. Yeah. But this one could be the difference between a professional meeting and event planner or not. Yeah. So I think that's really smart, because we need to be held accountable. We need to be held accountable. And the only way that CMOs, CEOs, CFOs are going to get their ROI in their investment here is to know that somebody is handling their meeting and events properly, and they can see, black and white. It's right there, and that's why they make the decisions they make. Because a lot of times we make decisions by just winging it, and that's if you're going to wing it, you're going to get wing it results. So you have to really have a backup to your decision making, and what better way than to have a certification like that? So that is brilliant. And I understand you have won awards over this.
Not the measurement piece specifically, because that's mostly with the Emmc that I'm talking about, but my agency, Smyle, and measurement is part of what we provide. And I'll tell you about an innovation, just Smyle's innovation in measurement. Okay. But Smyle did win Agency of the Year 4 times last year, 4 different publications. It was a very challenging year, I think, for our industry. And we made a decision in March of 2020 to focus on virtual and digital experiences, and to do so in a way that was not webinars. We wanted to do things that were very innovative and different. And I think that was the right decision at that moment, because I think some of our colleagues, nobody knew what was going to happen. And some people thought, I'll just wait this out. Right. And I think waiting it out wasn't an option then, and it isn't an option now. We have to evolve, be agile, pivot, if you will, and understand digital technologies. The innovation, so we have the Emmc, so that's a coalition of people who have the sort of like-minded and foundational elements that we're focused on. Many of us are competitors in this when it comes to measurement. So Smyle has an innovation when it comes to measurement, which we call return on emotion. And so this is a really cool technology that allows us to track emotional response of an audience through an event and correlate what happened at the event to certain emotional states. In real time. Isn't that something? I can tell you, like, the audience is happy, the audience is pissed off, the audience is inspired while it's happening. And then, of course, from a measurement standpoint, if we believe hearts and minds, which I think many of us do, then how do you measure the impact on how someone feels? And so that's part of our differentiating methodology, is this ROE, return on emotion metric. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Wow,
We're
that
about to
is
do it for the
amazing.
first time. I have to be honest. We haven't done it yet, but in 2 weeks' time,
Oh,
we're doing it for the first time. So I'm super
oh.
excited.
Well,
Yeah,
we'd love to hear how that works because I know from a speaker standpoint of view, that would be very interesting.
totally. Yeah.
Very interesting.
No
Instead of
one's paying
relying,
attention to you.
yeah, because the evaluation forms afterward, it's over with. But to see this happen in real time
Yeah.
has got to be really
Yeah.
interesting. So with
Yeah.
those two, intertwined with each other, oh my gosh, you are the future of our industry, and the future is now. Meeting
Right.
and event professionals need to be doing this now. So I'm hoping all our viewers right now really gravitate toward this information that you have shared, because it's time. I know you've
I
been
agree.
battling with this, in the United States and UK, all over the world for so long. I think what we went through, this whole, big, huge beast that we went through, I think it is time for people to really hunker
Yeah.
down and be more accountable for
Yeah.
these meeting events to happen or not, instead of just waiting for, a pandemic to come back again, which it will. But
Especially as we don't know what's going to happen with events. And
right,
so it's
we
another
don't.
moment in time where it's like the future is unknown. Therefore, evaluate what happens so that you can actually make sense of what's happening.
Right.
And so that's another reason I think why this is a critical moment in time.
Right. Well, as we end today, because this was so valuable, we could have talked for an hour or two.
Mhm.
I wanted to end on a note that, this week is actually Thursday, September 23rd, is established as the International Hospitality Women's Day right
Yeah.
here on HTL. And I would love a male's perspective on what you feel this day means to our industry, not only to celebrate the achievements of women and the call to action to elevate women in leadership roles. Is there anything that you would like to contribute and say about this upcoming day?
Yes. First of all, I'm a huge ally, 100% focused on women in leadership positions. That's exactly the right sentiment, what you've just said. My experience in this world has been, it's more women than men who work in this industry. However, at the leadership levels, there is a serious issue. And I will tell you, the issue is at Smyle as well, and we're looking at it heavily, is that we need to bring more women into leadership positions. It cannot be male dominated at the top anymore. And I think when it comes to events, I think there is a movement towards DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion in events, meaning the people you see on stage, the people who are invited to events. We need to think through all the way through how we embrace the role of women leaders in our industry. And I'm fully supporting of it, to the point at which I'm not going to say. Let's just say I almost said to well, I'm not going to say it.
Come on.
Okay, I will say it.
Come on,
I
say it. This is what this show's all about.
I said to my co-directors at Smyle, I said, I will happily resign my position if we can find a woman to take the role.
Wow.
Because I was like, we have too many men on our directors, and and we have to change the balance. And I will happily sacrifice for the right person.
Wow, that just gave me chills down my spine, Dex, because that is what I'm finding men are doing for this industry. They really are putting themselves out there to say, hey, today the future is now for more female leaders. And I was watching a hospitality show. I think it was David Kong with Best Western Hotels, who just retired. He said that the hotel owners throughout the world, there's only like 7% female owners. And it's because the access is not available to them like they are for men. And even female pilots, there's only 7% female pilots worldwide. So we got an issue here that we need to tackle, and we're going to start this here on HTL. And by golly, that was a great statement. Thank you so much. I'm going to utilize that testimonial on the show as well. And we really appreciate you being here with us today. And let us know how that event goes in the next 2 weeks, because this is where we're going.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Dex.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go. Was that an exciting episode? I told you so, because Dex really is an icon when it comes to this industry and what he does for the industry. And now is the time to be accountable and measure your meetings and events correctly so that your reputation, the company's reputation, and the industry's reputation is really going to matter. So get on board, contact Dex, or do something within your organization to move forward in this area, because you're going to see it's going to make a difference on your decision making for every meeting and event that you plan. And so thank you. If you want to see this episode again or share this conversation, by all means, the replay will be on all our social media platforms. And if you have any comments, questions, contact us at hello@Hospitality Today Live, because I know I'm just thrilled about this episode and we're going to play it over and over again. But I know you also want to know what's going to be happening next Tuesday. Well, we do have another great guy to introduce to you, David, he's the board of directors for the Meeting Industry Foundation. David Geiger is going to be in the house, and he is going to explain what is the Meeting Industry Foundation and what does it do to help people in crises like the ones we're in right now? And how do you get a grant? How are they available? How do you apply? And how is it promoted throughout the industry, and so much more? So don't miss next Tuesday with David being here as well. And of course, like Dex said, you don't want to miss this Thursday, September 23rd, for the International Hospitality Women's Day right here on HTL. I'm Deborah Gardner, your host. Thank you so much for being with us. And remember, if you're thinking about it, we're talking about it right here on Hospitality Today Live. Bye, everyone.